People think betrayal always arrives with drama. Loud arguments, shattered glass, doors slamming. But in my case, it came quietly. So quietly that for a long time, I didn't even realize it had already entered my life and made itself comfortable. My name is Daniel. I'm 39 years old, a project manager at a construction firm, and until a year ago, I believed I had a stable life. A wife I trusted, a son I adored, and a home that felt like the center of everything. My wife, Laura, and I had been married for 9 years. We had a 7-year-old son named Ethan. He was the kind of kid who laughed with his whole heart, the kind who made bad days feel smaller just by being around. For him, I thought we were doing everything right. Laura worked as a freelance interior designer. She had a flexible schedule, which made it easier to manage Ethan's school routines. I worked longer hours, often coming home tired, but I always believed that what I was doing was for us, for our future. If you'd asked me back then, I would have told you we were happy. Maybe not perfect, but steady, comfortable, safe. That's what I thought. Looking back now, the signs were there. Small, easy to ignore changes. Laura started paying more attention to her appearance. Not in an unusual way, but noticeable enough. New outfits, subtle changes in her style, a renewed focus on fitness. At first, I admired it. I even complimented her more. "You look different," I told her one evening. She smiled. "Different good or different bad?" "Definitely good," I said. She laughed, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. I didn't think much of it at the time. Then came the late evenings. She'd say she had client meetings or last-minute design revisions. Again, it made sense. Freelancing could be unpredictable. I trusted her completely, so I never questioned it. Trust could be a beautiful thing. It can also make you blind. One night, I came home earlier than usual. A meeting had been canceled, and I thought it would be nice to surprise them. Maybe take Ethan out for ice cream, spend some unexpected time together. The house was quiet when I walked in. "Laura," I called out. No answer. Ethan was at his friend's house. I remembered she had mentioned that earlier, so I assumed she was out for work. I shrugged it off and went to the kitchen. That's when I noticed her laptop open on the counter. I didn't mean to look. I wasn't that kind of person. But the screen lit up with a message notification. Just a name, Mark, and a line of text. "I miss you already." I froze. It felt like time stopped, like the world suddenly tilted in a way I couldn't correct. I stared at the screen, hoping I had misunderstood, hoping there was some logical explanation. But deep down, I already knew. I didn't read more. I closed the laptop gently, as if making noise would somehow make it more real. When Laura came home an hour later, I was sitting on the couch, waiting. She walked in, keys in hand, smiling at first. But the moment she saw my face, the smile faded. "You're home early," she said. "Yeah," I replied calmly. "Meeting got canceled." She nodded, setting her bag down. "That's nice. Did you eat?" "I saw a message," I said. That was all it took. Her entire posture changed. Her shoulders tensed. Her eyes dropped for just a second before she looked back at me. "What message?" she asked, but her voice had already given her away. "From Mark." Silence. It stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she sat down across from me. "Daniel, how long?" I asked. She closed her eyes briefly. "A few months." I nodded slowly, absorbing the words like they were being carved into me. "A few months," I repeated. "While I've been working, while we've been raising our son, while I've been thinking everything was fine." "It's not like that," she said quickly. "It just happened." "That doesn't mean anything," I replied. "Things don't just happen." "For months." She looked at me, tears forming. "I didn't plan it. I didn't go looking for it. But you didn't stop it either." She didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I stood up, pacing slowly across the room, trying to keep my emotions under control. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want Ethan to ever remember a moment like that. Even though he wasn't there, it still mattered. "Do you love him?" I asked finally. She hesitated. "I don't know." That hurt more than a yes would have. Because "I don't know" meant there was something there. Something strong enough to make her question everything we had built. I let out a slow breath. "Does he know about me? About Ethan?" "Yes," she whispered. I laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. "So he's just okay with this?" "It's not like that," she said again, but her voice sounded weaker now. I stopped pacing and looked at her. Really looked at her. This was the woman I had trusted completely. The woman I thought I knew better than anyone. And yet, in that moment, she felt like a stranger. That night, we didn't argue anymore. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't make things worse. I slept in the guest room, or at least I tried to. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past few months. Every late night, every distracted conversation, every time she smiled at her phone. It all made sense now, but understanding it didn't make it hurt any less. The next morning, everything felt unreal, like we were actors playing roles in someone else's story. Ethan came home, full of energy, talking about a game he played at his friend's house. Laura smiled, nodded, responded like everything was normal. I did the same, because for him, it had to be. But inside, something had changed. Something fundamental. I went to work that day, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to the same thought. Not just that she had betrayed me, but that she had made a choice. Over and over again. And that's when something shifted in me. At first, it was just pain, then confusion, then anger. But slowly, something else started to take shape. Clarity. I realized something important. I couldn't control what she had done. I couldn't undo it, but I could control what I did next. And for the first time since I saw that message, I stopped thinking like a victim. I started thinking about what I deserved. That night, when I came home, Laura tried to talk again. "We need to figure this out," she said. I looked at her calmly. "We will." But in my mind, I already knew something she didn't. I wasn't going to react impulsively. I wasn't going to shout or make decisions out of anger. No, I was going to take my time. Because sometimes the strongest response isn't immediate. Sometimes it's patient. And sometimes the best kind of revenge doesn't look like revenge at all. In the days that followed, I didn't confront Laura again. Not because I had forgiven her, but because I had decided something more important than reacting. I was going to understand everything first. Most people think revenge is loud and immediate. But real control, that comes from patience. From seeing the full picture while the other person assumes you're still trying to process it. Laura thought I was still in shock. In a way, I was. But beneath that, something sharper had started forming. I was watching now, listening more carefully, noticing details I had ignored before. She became more cautious after that night. Her phone was always with her. She smiled less around me, spoke carefully, like every word had to pass through a filter first. Guilt changes people. It makes them quieter, less certain, but it doesn't always make them stop. One evening, about a week later, she said she had to meet a client. "I'll be back late," she added, not meeting my eyes. I nodded. Okay. No questions. No suspicion in my tone. That surprised her. I could tell. "Do you want me to bring dinner?" she asked, almost as if testing me. "I'll manage," I said calmly. She hesitated for a moment, then left. The moment the door closed, I stood still in the living room, listening to the fading sound of her car. My heart was steady, not racing like before. This time, I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was thinking. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already knew enough. Instead, I did something she didn't expect. I started focusing on myself. It began with small changes. I started going to the gym again. At first, it was just a way to clear my head. But soon it became something else. A routine. A structure I could control when everything else felt uncertain. I updated my wardrobe. Nothing dramatic, just enough to feel different when I looked in the mirror. More put together. More aware of myself. At work, I became sharper. More focused. I took on projects I had been avoiding. Stayed later when needed. Not to escape home, but to build something that was mine. Something solid. Meanwhile, at home, I remained calm. Respectful. Present, especially for Ethan. That was the part that mattered most. He didn't deserve to feel any of this. And I made sure he didn't. I helped with his homework, took him to the park, listened to his stories. If anything, I became more attentive. Laura noticed. One night, she sat across from me at the dinner table after Ethan had gone to bed. "You've been different," she said carefully. I looked up. "Different how?" "Calmer," she replied. "More distant." I gave a small nod. "I'm just thinking things through." She studied me, as if trying to figure out what that meant. "Are you okay?" I almost smiled at that. Not really, I said honestly, but I will be. That answer seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. Because anger she could respond to. Anger meant I was still emotionally reacting to her. But calm? Calm meant I was moving in a direction she couldn't predict. A few days later, something happened that shifted things even further. Ethan had a school event, a small performance. Parents were invited. Laura and I both attended, sitting side by side in the crowded auditorium. When Ethan spotted us in the audience, his face lit up completely. That kind of pure joy only kids can have. In that moment, I glanced at Laura. She was smiling, but her eyes were wet. After the event, as Ethan ran ahead to join his friends, she turned to me. "We used to be like that," she said softly. "Like what?" I asked. "Certain," she replied. "Happy in a simple way." I didn't answer right away. "We were," I said finally. "But things change when people stop protecting what they have." She flinched slightly at that, but she didn't argue. That night, she didn't go out. She stayed home, sat on the couch, quietly, scrolling through her phone, but not really focused on it. I could feel the shift now. The balance was changing. She had expected chaos, confrontation, maybe even desperation from me. Instead, she was getting distance, growth, silence. And that silence was starting to speak louder than anything else. A week later, she approached me again. "I ended it," she said. I looked at her, expression neutral. "Ended what?" She swallowed. "With Mark." I studied her for a moment. "What?" "Because I realized what I was risking," she said. "What I already damaged." "And now?" I asked. "I want to fix this," she said. "If you'll let me." I leaned back slightly, crossing my arms, not defensively, but thoughtfully. "You didn't end it because of me," I said calmly. "You ended it because something changed for you." She looked down. "Maybe, but I'm here now. I'm choosing this." I nodded slowly. "And I'm choosing to take my time," I replied. That was the moment everything became clear, not just to me, but to her. This wasn't going to be a quick forgiveness story. This wasn't something she could fix with apologies, because I wasn't the same man who had been blindsided weeks ago. I had changed too, not in a loud or dramatic way, but internally, fundamentally. I had stopped placing my entire sense of stability in something I couldn't control, and that was something she could feel. From that point on, the dynamic between us shifted in a way neither of us had expected. She started trying harder, initiating conversations, suggesting family time, being more present. And I responded, but carefully. Not cold, not cruel, just measured. Because I understood something now. Revenge didn't have to mean hurting her back. It could mean becoming someone who no longer depended on her choices to feel whole. But there was still one final step. One decision I hadn't made yet. Because growth changes perspective. And sometimes, when you finally become strong enough to stay, you also become strong enough to walk away. Time has a strange way of revealing truth. Not all at once, but in quiet moments you don't expect. By the time a few more months had passed, our home no longer felt tense the way it once did. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It had changed into something calmer, but also more distant in a different way. Laura kept her word. She stayed. She tried. I could see it in the effort she put into everything. Our conversations, time with Ethan, even the way she looked at me now. There was regret there. Real regret. But something inside me had already shifted too far. Not broken. Not bitter. Just changed. I had spent so much time focusing on rebuilding myself that I had unknowingly created a version of me that no longer fit into the same space as before. And that realization didn't come from anger. It came from clarity. One evening, I was sitting in the backyard watching Ethan ride his bike in small circles, proudly showing off how fast he could go. Laura stood near the door, watching us. "Careful," she called out. "I am," Ethan shouted back, laughing. I smiled, but my thoughts were somewhere else. For the first time, I imagined my life, not as it used to be, but as it could be, independent, peaceful, steady in a way that didn't rely on uncertainty. And surprisingly, it didn't feel scary. It felt possible. That night, after Ethan went to bed, Laura sat next to me on the couch. "We've been doing better," she said softly. I nodded. We have. She looked at me carefully. But something still feels off. Like you're here, but not completely. I didn't avoid it this time. You're right, I said. Her expression tightened slightly, but she stayed quiet. I took a breath. I forgave you, Laura. I truly did. Not in a way that erases what happened, but in a way that let me move forward without carrying anger. She listened closely, her hands clasped together. But forgiveness doesn't always mean things go back to the way they were, I continued. Sometimes it just means you've accepted the truth. Tears filled her eyes. And what truth is that? That I'm not the same person anymore, I said gently. And neither are you. The room felt still. I tried, she whispered. I'm still trying. I know, I said. And I respect that. I really do. Then why does it feel like I'm losing you? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. I looked at her, not with anger, not with resentment, but with honesty. Because in some ways, you already did, I said. She closed her eyes, letting a tear fall. That moment was painful, but it wasn't chaotic. It wasn't destructive. It was real. And sometimes, reality is quieter than we expect. Over the next few weeks, we had conversations we had been avoiding for a long time. Not arguments, conversations. About what staying together would truly mean. About whether we were holding on because of love or because of habit. About Ethan and what kind of environment would be healthiest for him. Not just in appearance, but in truth. We didn't rush it. We gave it the weight it deserved. And eventually, we came to the same conclusion. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but clearly. We decided to separate. Not as enemies. Not as people trying to hurt each other. But as two individuals who had reached a point where staying together no longer felt honest. The conversation with Ethan was the hardest part. We sat with him one afternoon, both of us calm, both of us present. Mom and Dad are going to live in different houses, Laura explained gently. Ethan frowned. Why? I leaned forward. Because sometimes adults realize they can be better parents when they live separately. But we both love you the same. That will never change. He looked between us, confused but listening. Will I still see both of you? He asked. Of course, Laura said quickly. All the time. He thought about it for a moment, then nodded slowly. Kids don't always need perfect explanations. They need consistency, love, reassurance. And we made sure he had all three. The transition wasn't easy, but it wasn't destructive either. We created a schedule. We communicated. We showed up for him, and in a way, for each other too. And something unexpected happened over time. The tension that once filled our marriage disappeared completely. Because there were no more expectations being silently carried. No more pretending. Just honesty. One afternoon, months later, Laura and I found ourselves sitting together again at Ethan's school event, just like before. But this time, things felt different. Lighter. Simpler. She looked at me and gave a small smile. You seem happy. I thought about it for a second. I think I am, I said. And you don't hate me? She asked, almost cautiously. I shook my head. No, I don't. She nodded, looking relieved but also thoughtful. I hate what I did, she said quietly. I know, I replied. But that's yours to carry and to grow from. She accepted that. And in that moment, I realized something important. This was the revenge. Not hurting her back. Not proving a point through anger. But becoming someone stronger. Someone who didn't need validation from the person who once broke his trust. Someone who could walk away with dignity. And still be a good father. A good man. As Ethan ran toward us after the event, smiling and full of excitement, we both stood up at the same time. For him, we were still a team. Just a different kind of one. And as I walked out of that school with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time, I understood something clearly. Sometimes the most powerful ending isn't about winning or losing. It's about choosing yourself and finally meaning it.